With the Venmo debit card, you can Venmo everything. Your favorite band's merch? You can Venmo this. Or their next show? You can Venmo that. Visit venmo.me/debit to learn more. The Venmo MasterCard is issued by the Bancorp Bank N.A. pursuant to license by MasterCard International Incorporated. The card may be used everywhere MasterCard is accepted. Venmo purchase restrictions apply.
With a major selection of the looks your kiddos love starting at just $4 in the Walmart app, a new school year means a stylish new them. Who knew? Find skater skirts and Crocs that say, I'm casual but cool. Sparkly sneakers that say, it's my classroom, you're just learning in it. And preppy polos that say, I'm the teacher's pet, even if they're mommy's menace at home. Find their favorite styles starting at just $4 in the app. The Walmart you thought you knew is now new.
This episode is brought to you by the world's first reposado from Tequila Herradura. Made with slow-cooked, hand-harvested agave sealed into oak barrels and aged 11 months. Before being enjoyed in your glass. Experience the world's first reposado, Tequila Herradura. Please drink responsibly. Responsibility.org. Tequila Herradura. 40% alcohol by volume. Imported by Brown-Forman, Louisville, Kentucky. Herradura is a registered trademark. Copyright 2025 Brown-Forman Corporation.
Encore une fois. This is the inside story of Paris 2024. 1 year on, one more time.
All eyes are on Roland Garros again, the tennis venue, one of the most popular here in Paris for a second time this year, of course. Can Andy Murray and Dan Evans play better than they did and scrape into the men's doubles third round? They're in second round action, fourth on Suzanne Lenglen against Belgium.
Absolutely loving being here. I'm loving being part of the team. I'm loving playing in the Olympics.
This is the inside Paris story from Anything But Footy, Encore Une Fois. 1 year on, one more time. What we did, where we were, some of the stories, some of the winners, some of the losers, even. We're looking back at Paris 2024 each day. It was actually my birthday, day 4.
And for me, it was a day where I took 2 pairs of glasses to Paris and I lost my second pair. Day 4.
That was not good.
I lost my first pair.
We're not talking shades here, are we? We're talking like glasses to see. Yes,
glasses to see to commentate on sport. So I took 2 with me, thinking I'll take a spare pair. I left 1 pair on the metro, either on day 2 or day 3, and I lost my second pair. Subsequently, I discovered in the hotel reception area because somebody handed them in.
You had a nice hotel. They looked after you there, didn't
they?
So
my Olympics were saved on that. So that's my tale of woe. And I was quite insistent that you needed to do something for your birthday because we'd been speaking quite early on that morning. The reason being is I was woken up pretty much in the early hours, I think, by you saying no triathlon today. So I had been meant to go to my favourite bridge, Pont Alexandre III, under the shadow of the Eiffel Tower, as I used to say, but it was postponed. And you messaged me to say it was postponed. So I actually had a sort of free morning. And I remember saying to you that you had to go and do something because it was your birthday.
Yeah, I think we'd had the discussion the night before. And we talked about this in a previous episode that we hadn't really thought that the tennis would be as high profile as we imagined. And then Andy Murray and Dan Evans, as we talked about, get through to the next round of the men's doubles. So I remember you telling me, and in no uncertain terms, you are going to Roland Garros because the flexibility was there. It wasn't, I don't think it was a huge day in terms of rowing and canoe slalom. Definitely wasn't that. And it was like, this is the opportunity to go. It's your birthday as well. You've never been to Roland Garros, so go. And in typical John Cushing fashion, I kind of grumpily accepted it. But in hindsight, go, well, that was the best day ever. Thank you so much. I'm so glad I did it. Why didn't I want to do it? But, and this is what I was talking about in the last episode a little bit. You kind of get into a routine. People, you want to know what you're doing. You want to know where you want to go. You don't want it to be easy. This is the Olympics. This is a once in a lifetime opportunity to cover what we were covering. But you pushed me, and I was always grateful for you pushing me because I'd never been to Roland Garros. I went there and I had a really great day. I met a couple, a lovely husband and wife on the metro on the way out there, and we were chatting on the train, and I did an interview with them for Talk Sport. We wanted to do some more kind of color pieces, and so I talked about why they were there, and that made me feel more confident. I think I actually found it was literally a week after England had lost in the Euros final to Spain, and I found some Spanish fans who were there to support Rafa Nadal. They were all kitted out in their Spanish football kits at Roland Garros, so I interviewed them as well. And I thought Roland Garros, and I've done Wimbledon a number of times, and you know how much I love that. I thought it was a million times better than SW19, and I understand now why Wimbledon wants to expand and wants to maintain its position as one of the best Grand Slams in the world, because Roland Garros, I mean, you've been there. It's incredible. It's vast, isn't it?
Yeah, it's an amazing venue. And actually, I remember hearing your interview with some of the fans, because obviously what the main reason for going that day was Andy Murray and Dan Evans were back in action. You're talking about fantastic sporting venues. We've talked previously on the podcast about the debate about the greatest sports people ever. And I know that was a question that you put to those fans that you met. So let's hear what they had to say.
I bought Claire to come to the Olympics as a birthday present.
Oh, happy birthday.
And we definitely went for the tennis as part of it. So brilliant.
On Talk Sport, we've been debating the greatest sportsman of all time. It could be Sir Steve Redgrave. What about Andy Murray, though?
Oh, he's got to be up there. I mean, his resilience, desire. We actually watched him win his first Wimbledon. We were in Malaysia. So in the middle of the night, in a very quiet little place we were staying, they stayed up all night with us to watch him win his first Wimbledon, so remember that distinctly.
Yeah, looking forward to seeing him in action today, fingers crossed. Finally, how are you finding the Olympics generally?
Well, brilliant. We only arrived yesterday, but the whole setup seems to be really, really efficient, and as always, the Parisians are lovely and we're having a great time.
So those were a couple of Team GB Andy Murray fans that were in Paris that John spoke to on his lovely day at Roland Garros. You know, this year, I can't come up with anything near as good as a gift for you. So all I can say is happy birthday.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I will take that. It's really interesting. My birthday does tend to fall during Olympic time or Commonwealth Games time, and everyone's always like, "Oh wow, I bet it's amazing." And it's like, yeah, you don't really have that much time to think it's your birthday. In fact, I said it was an amazing day. I had no cash, no Visa card at Roland Garros, and you can't buy anything in the Olympic venues unless you have a Visa card. And so actually I didn't eat all day, and it probably, in hindsight, I got back to my hotel, which, as we've previously advertised, wasn't the world's greatest. The bar and food had shut at 10 p.m, and so I didn't actually celebrate my birthday particularly that day. But let's talk about why it was a great day, because I remember watching Jack Draper in action, and he took Taylor Fritz all the way but lost on the Susan Longland court. I remember sitting in the stadium and reporting live into Talk Sport, and I felt like this is why I come to the Olympics. I'm sitting in this amazing venue and talking about that. They're so steep. The stands are so steep. Again, in contrast to Wimbledon. Alcaraz and Nadal won the men's doubles. Murray and Evans, that was what I was there for. I interviewed them as well. And I say them because you found this as well. Everybody wanted to speak to Sir Andy, and actually they were a team. If Dan Evans wasn't there, Sir Andy wouldn't have won. Wow.
Yeah, it's getting late every time now, later and later, and we played some really good stuff today. I thought we were really unlucky not to get that done in 2 sets.
I'm sure you get asked this all the time. Did it go through your head, oh, this is the last, it could be the last again, especially in that 10-point tiebreak?
Well, I know that this is my last tournament, so I know that every match I go into is possibly the last competitive match, but, you know, it's worth, you know, putting myself on the line one more time, and, you know, I get to rest when this tournament's done for a very long time. And yeah, I'm absolutely loving being here. I'm loving being part of the team. I'm loving playing in the Olympics, and yeah, it's an amazing and special experience. So I'm grateful that I get to, you know, go through that one more time.
And Dan Evans actually said to me after the interview, "Thanks very much for speaking to me."
I know. Well, I remember Andy saying after we interviewed him before the games at the Performance Lodge. Well, you interviewed him, and I kind of just sat next to you, and I'd introduced myself to him at the start. When I'm just sort of producing or whatever today, and I remember at the end I'd done absolutely nothing. He stood up, shook my hand, and went, "Great job, well done, mate." So I'll take that, as I've literally just sat here and watched and listened from Andy Murray. But yeah, I just think it's right in the same conversation with Tom Daley and Noah Williams, with Andy Murray and Dan Evans. They're there as a team, and you want to hear from them as a team. I know when you get to like a men's rowing 8 plus Cox, it's harder to try and get something from all 9 people, for example. But I think when there's a pair or a double, I think it's just courtesy to speak to both. And I think Andy appreciated that as well. I think Dan also gave good insights. I know when I spoke to him during the Olympics, he gave good insights into where the pair were and how they were feeling. I remember getting the call, I don't know whether it was right or wrong in hindsight, on that evening, because I was in the centre of Paris that night when they were on court, and I was doing the live Talk Sport show with Natalie Sawyer and Jazz Carlin. We were in a restaurant, and I remember
you were having my birthday meal.
More about your food choices on tomorrow's podcast. But there was the 4x200 meter swimming final, which Team GB won gold in, at exactly the same time as Andy Murray and Dan Evans were reaching the end of that match. And I remember saying, we were on the Andy Murray commentary, and I remember saying, go away from the Andy Murray commentary, go to the swimming, because I think they're going to win a gold, then come back to Andy Murray. And they ignored me, and they stayed with Andy Murray, and then they ran the swimming commentary in, I think, slightly later, on to a sort of slight delay straight afterwards. But yeah, it was, I think in hindsight, it was probably the right call what they did. I probably was wrong in pushing for the swimming.
I think, again, it's probably, with your Olympic hat on, the 4x200 meter freestyle relay is a bigger event than Murray and Evans beating Belgium.
Yeah, that was my viewpoint. But in terms of the general audience at home, exactly,
and what we knew about Sir Andy, and as you say, they were about to beat the Belgians, they were about to progress to the next round, and it felt like that really was the story at that moment. For example, Coco Gauff had crashed out to Donna Vekic, I think, earlier on in that day, and that was a huge story for America. She carried the flag in the opening ceremony and was a big hope. And so sometimes you just have to go with what the story is. And I think it was the right decision. But look, Duncan Scott, Matt Richards, Tom Dean, James Guy, the first ever relay team to defend their gold medal. They won it in Tokyo
with the same quartet,
same lineup. It's the first time it's ever happened in the history of the Olympics. Now, admittedly, it's only 3 years since it happened, because normally Olympics is 4 years, but Tokyo was delayed. So you could understand why what might have been potential, but it was still such a huge story, and it was the only gold swimming medal that Aquatics GB won. There were a lot of silvers in the swimming pool, diving, we know about, and the medals we won in synchronized. I'm not allowed to call it that. You'll correct me later on in the series. But it was a massive moment, but I still think the right decision was made.
So just before you wrap up some of the other highlights from Tuesday, the 30th of July, I'd spent the afternoon at the Stade de France at the Rugby Sevens, where we knew that the women weren't going to win a medal, but obviously that cruel thing they do at the Olympics, you kind of have to play out your positions.
Yes.
So there's like some deciders for who's 11th, 12th. So Great Britain's women were in one of those deciders, the Irish obviously there as well. And just a little bit of insight really into sort of the way we work. There'd been a story that one of the British Rugby Sevens players had been sent home because some racist messages had emerged and been shared. And so the player was sent home. And obviously the authorities were launching an inquiry into this. Now, we had spent quite a bit of time in the build-up to the games with Kieran Beattie. He'd been a guest on our Great British Bosses podcast, and he was the coach of the Rugby Sevens team. So disappointing campaign for them. That's one thing. And then the shadow of obviously what happened with one of the members of his team. And he comes pitch side afterwards to do some interviews. And I said to him, because we'd had this relationship, I said, I'm going to have to ask you about this player that's been sent home. and sometimes it's better as a journalist, I think, to spring these things on people. But sometimes I just think actually giving the person the heads up. The press officer was there as well, and I said, right, well, whatever you are going to say, I am going to push you on it and follow you up. It's up to you what you want to do. And basically, they agreed. He spoke to the press officer and agreed that what they would say is, look, there's an inquiry ongoing. There's no place for racism in anything, in sport, in society. There's an inquiry ongoing. Till we've got the results of that inquiry, I can't comment any further. I would then push him on it. So, as I said, I can't really comment any further. Now, I'm not sure if other journalists are listening to that, other broadcasts listening to that. Did I go too easy on him, or did I do the right thing in warning him about the questions that were coming? I'm not sure. I don't know what the right answer is.
I think you did the right thing. You wanted the story covered, and he wanted to say the right thing. But it is really difficult, I think, with those kind of stories. And we talk about Team GB, that Charlotte Dujardin, etc. They had a number of issues that they were dealing with. But actually, I think it's better to, and they've always been like, I've always found Team GB have been more like this. If you're open and honest with them, they will help you get what you need. Very quickly, I was at Roland Garros all day, as we've talked about. I watched Katie Bolter and Heather Watson play in one of the very small courts on some of the outside courts. And they're all concrete. It's all concrete seats. So they're not proper seats. You just kind of plonk yourself down. And they beat Germany in straight sets, 6-2, 6-3. But I was doing my live reports into Talk Sport while I was there. And I can remember literally sitting on the baseline and seeing Heather and Katie playing, and I was doing reports, and at one point I got told to hush by some of the fans around me because I was talking very, very in hushed tones, but obviously still not hushed tones. And I actually think that Katie and Heather both looked at me and were like, and then kind of went back to concentrate because I wrapped up quite quickly. So again, a lesson of when to speak and when not to speak.
You see, when I did the Andy Murray first round commentary at Roland Garros, which if you listen to the previous episodes, you'll know I just sat in the crowd. At the end of it, this bear of a man, this American man who was sat about 3 rows in front of me, he turned round, looked at me, and I thought, oh, he's going to have a right go here, because I've basically been screaming and shouting about Andy Murray for the last hour, 2 rows behind him. And he just went to me, great commentary, love the play-by-play, and walked off. I promised myself I wasn't going to do the accent when I told that story. I thought I've got away with that there. That could have gone 2 ways.
Brilliant.
So, yeah, sitting in the crowd maybe has its advantages on the bigger stadium, shall we say.
And then my other slightly embarrassing moment at Roland Garros is I met a journalist who I know reasonably well in the last 5-6 years of doing what we do. Never met him in person. And he came up to me and went, "You don't look like your social media picture." I've no idea what that meant. I took that as not maybe a good thing, or maybe it was a bad thing. I'm not quite sure, but it did make me laugh. It was one of my favourite moments of the Olympics. And what I love doing, and Michael absolutely hated it, was that I went round and got selfies with everybody that I knew and who I worked with, because it's a moment in time, isn't it? That's the thing. It's a moment in time that you share with people, and you will always have that moment. That Paris 2024 moment could be a Rio 2016 moment, could be a London 2012 moment, but you always have it with that one person.
Yeah, I'm not sure I hate it that you were doing it. I was.
You hate the ones I got with the mascots.
yeah, the mascots ones. Yeah, I mean, I'm very much in favour if an athlete's won a medal and there's the opportunity and you're not disrupting what they need to do and what other journalists and what other presenters or reporters needing to do. A quick picture of them or you and them with the medal for social media. That's the age we're in. And I'm afraid that a lot of journalists would be like look down on you a little bit for getting a selfie with Tom Daley and Noah Williams with the medal. I'm afraid that these days for clicks and everything else, yeah, it's part of it. You need to do it. And I do it blatantly and will continue to do it.
But you don't delay people. That's the difference.
No.
You do it when it's time and appropriate. You're not saying, actually there are 5 people waiting for you, but I need this. Can we do a walk piece for the TV? No, we can't.
There is the time and place. Usually that immediate interview flash zone, mix zone is not the time and place to do it. Sometimes it can be if they're at the end of their schedule or it's a quiet one. Team GB House, it's pretty much encouraged that sort of following morning, because people turn up there. They've obviously got the following day kit on and everything else, and they've had that chance to relax and get ready for it because they knew they're doing the rounds of the TV. That's the time to get those pictures, I think. And boy, I got them. So AJT, Key League.
You got them all. They're all available on the socials.
So more about John and his eating habits on the next episode of the podcast. And make sure you're listening to tomorrow's, because it was pretty much, for me, my most momentous day covering the Olympics. So more about that tomorrow. This is Encore Une Fois, the inside Paris story from Anything But Footy. 1 year on, one more time.
Encore une fois, Paris 2024, one more time.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.